banned literature, explosive, furthering the aims of a banned organization. Fortunately, it was myself who appeared in court with Comrade Ndusia, who were released on bail. Now, I was very ill at the time. I was mentally deranged to some degree. But we did go to court, made an appearance after being released on bail. Comrade Sekhalo Mai took me to Hillbrow Hospital together with the late Comrade Ndwesile Xamvu. I believe I stayed a month or two in Hillbrow. I recovered, and when I recovered, it was only then that I took the decision to leave the country, because from what the charges that had been pressed against me, and when I had banned my lawyers before I came down to Welkom, it was clear that I would go to Robben Island. Now, I came by train back to Welkom, informed comrades that I was leaving the country. It was 3-4 days before the trial date. We crossed the border to Lesotho. It was myself, it was the late Ndwesile Xamvu, the late Nyembezi Jabuza, the late Gwebityala, Ans, and the fifth one, then it was myself. So it was not a decision that had been in my mind for a long time. I had felt I was effective in pursuing the struggle inside. But the only recourse after having seen that I was facing those charges, I felt that I could be a utility in exile. Well, exile, we stayed in Lesotho for about 3 months. When we arrived, we had a bad ordeal with the security police in Lesotho, because we were welcomed by the Christian Church, Christian Council in Lesotho. We were given accommodation at a place called Hasosane. Now, what we had done, we had utilized code names, you see. We didn't give them our real names, you see, in trying to protect ourselves from either victimization from security branch from South Africa or Lesotho. Now, on our arrival, the 5 of us, there's also a late comrade, he was called Moshana. We sent him back to Welkom to come and fetch other comrades whom we considered their lives were a threat. This included Vuyo Dons, Mike Sekhalo, and many others I cannot recall. Now, a large contingent of comrades arrived in Lesotho subsequently. You would know that when I was in detention, many comrades had left the country already in the Goldfields area. Now, there's one young comrade who arrived there, Junior Nguna. And as comrades were arriving, we gave them an instruction that they should use pseudonyms. But unfortunately, the father of Junior, Pratik, came to fetch his son in Lesotho, and our cover was blown. Myself, Ndwesile, and Mike were detained and threatened with deportation by the Lesotho security, including Home Affairs. But fortunately, after our detention took about the whole day and some torture, we were released and we had to give our real names. But they changed their mind about sending us back to South Africa. So we were sent to a United Nations center not far away from Maseru. So where we developed a program there, we got contact with comrades in the underground. One of them was Dudu Khalane. We were given literature. Every evening we would run political discussions. There would be a jazz hour where we'd sing freedom songs. So the idea was that we should keep the spirits of the comrades alive and also deepen the understanding. Our levels of understanding of politics at the time varied a lot. So in the 3 months we stayed in Lesotho, that's what we were doing for the better part of the time. While also, food at the UN center was not up to a high standard. So the ANC underground would sometimes give me and some comrades funds to buy extra food for the comrades at the residence. But finally, after 3 months, we flew, I believe it was 40 of us, to Zambia. We arrived at a place called Charleston in Zambia. We were welcomed by Mbogoto comrades. When we arrived, it was at night. We stayed in Charleston. Now we had to write our biographies, of course, and in that process, one had to choose whether he wanted to go to the army or to school, but the majority of comrades chose to go and join MK because, look, fires were burning in the country and we had to sacrifice our studies so that we come back and fight the enemy. Well, in Charleston, we would be visited by many senior leaders of the ANC. The late Comrade Masondo, who was from Robben Island. He was a general in the defense who spent most of his time with us. Comrade Chris Hani, the late, also visited us. The late Mzwai Piliso, including the Free State High Command that was based at military headquarters. Of course, with me, a week after we'd arrived, an interview was arranged between myself and the comrades who were working for Radio Freedom. Basically, it was centered around me giving the state of the nation in the country. Well, we left for Angola. We arrived at a transit camp. It was called Viana, not far away from Luanda. Well, we were introduced to the military routine. I mean, morning sport, it was called, where you do physical exercise, and we'll be doing chores. We'll be deployed. Either you clean the camp, others will be deployed for cooking. I believe in Vienna we stayed a month or so. Then we later transported to a place called Kibashi in northern Angola for military training. That's where we did our military training, in Kibashi in the north. Our detachment were called the Young Lions. I believe it was about 6 platoons. Now a platoon, you're talking on average 30 comrades. We had instructors, we were taught politics, there was physical training, there was what was called tactics, there was what was called topography, engineering, and other subjects. So that's where we underwent training. Now, in the process, other comrades would be deployed, others were sent back to the country, others would be sent to Yugoslavia. The training, ideally basic military training, then would take 6 months. And then there would be 4 months of specialization, right? But with me, in my 7th month in Kibashi, I was taken back to Rwanda, where we attended physical science classes and mathematics classes. We were taught by a professor who had studied in France. We were being prepared for long-term courses in the military. You would know that by 86, 87, MK was trying to develop what you would call semi-regular characteristics. MK was a guerrilla army. But because victory was in sight, some soldiers had to be trained in a regular army, you see. So I was one of those. And whilst we were still receiving training lectures at what was called a plot, that's where we were based, we were sent back to northern Angola because war broke out between us and UNITA. It's what is popularly known as the Northern Front. We spent 2 weeks there trying, because UNITA would deprive us logistics. It would be difficult for us to our logistics from Luanda to go to the camps because they were fighting against FABLA, but they also regarded us as an enemy because we were hosted by the MPLA. So we stayed in the front for 2 weeks, but the academic year would start on the 1st of September in the Soviet Union. That's where we were going. So we were brought back to the plot. We stayed a week or two. And then we had to do medical tests because others would be trained as pilots, and that would require an extensive medical test. But finally, we left for the Soviet Union. Now, others were going to study politics, others were sent to the Navy, others with what is called your ground force. Now, a ground force in Russian is what you call a pikhota. Others were sent to do aviation. We were divided along those lines. So with me, I was sent to study air artillery, what you call maybe an anti-air gunner. I was stationed at a town in the Soviet Union called Simferopol. A group of 20, and when we arrived in Simferopol, there was a group of 20 comrades who had been sent the previous year, the senior comrades in MK. So we joined them at Simferopol. We were at what is called an Uchiliche, more like a military college. So when classes started, we had to be taught Russian because Russian was used as a medium of instruction for those who were doing long-term courses. It's only comrades went for short-term courses in the Soviet Union that would utilize an interpreter. So we studied Russian. In the process, we were doing other military subjects. The first year elapsed and we proceeded through the second year. At the end of the second year, I relapsed from my illness that I had incurred in detention because I was not under medication. I thought I had healed completely because it had taken almost 3 years without a relapse. I was sent to a couple of Soviet hospitals in the Ukraine because that's the republic where we were based. But after some time, a decision was taken that I should be taken back to Angola because it was clear that I was not recovering. I would recover and still have a relapse. Then in 1989, around August, I was sent back to Angola together with 3 comrades who had also couldn't continue with their studies.
So you did not complete your course?
No, I did not. Yeah, due to ill health. Then I was sent to a hospital in Angola. I stayed there 2 weeks. Then I was moved to Zambia, to an ANC clinic, where I received treatment. In a space of a month or so, I recovered. And then in 1990, I decided to redo a matric, but I was doing what was called GCE O-levels with the University of Zambia. But in the middle of my studies, because I was attending full-time, I was recruited to go and work at the Department of Personnel and Training, which was part of military headquarters, where basically we were administering all records of MK cadets. Well, you know that in 1990 the leadership was released. They came to see us in Lusaka, organizations were banned, and the repatriation process began. Just that my frustration, of course, with the repatriation process was that some of us couldn't easily come back home. We had to be indemnified according to what was agreed with the hosting scheme. So I only came back in the country in 1991, August.
After you received
being indemnified, yeah, because some of us were considered threats to or enemies of the state.
You're still having the pending case
Exactly.
in the Republic.
Yeah,
Then,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
And then your homecoming?
Well, homecoming was not rosy, I would put it that way. Because I came to the country not feeling well. I had a relapse. And I only realized myself being at the airport in Lusaka, flying to Johannesburg. I was not well at the time. And we arrived at what is now called OR Tambo. We were taken to the hotel. I believe it was part-time, but I'm not sure because I had no memory at the time. And then I stayed 2 days in that hotel and I was prioritized to be sent home. Fortunately, in my group that had arrived then, the late comrade Mokwere from Africa was there. So together with one comrade who was in the MTM, we drove back to Velkom. Fortunately, I still knew directions to home. I arrived home. It was painful to my father,